That never gets old. Hey guys, welcome back to Play Retro. So today I just wanted to do a fun little comparison between original hardware versus these modern emulation devices. And for this example, we're going to be using my favorite system to play, my favorite system to emulate, the Game Boy Advance. But really this video is a deeper conversation about retro gaming as a whole, the current landscape of retro gaming, the current state of retro gaming as a whole. So you can take this example and really insert your own favorite system. For example, let's say the NES or the Super Nintendo or the Genesis versus your favorite way to emulate that system. The same thing applies, right? So I want to invite players from both sides, the guys who are strictly purist, original hardware guys who only play on original hardware with the original games. And then I want to invite the guys who are strictly on the other side, on the emulation side, the guys who use retro handhelds, the guys who play on PC on whatever they want and they strictly emulate games. I want everybody to just come together and have a conversation about the ways we play and why we play those games the way we do. So in this video, we're going to talk about the rising costs of retro gaming, what it really costs to play on original hardware versus on these emulation handhelds. We're going to also talk about how hardware is aging and how we need new ways to play these old games. We're going to also talk about the authenticity of playing on original hardware, using real cartridges, having ownership of these games. Finally, we're going to talk about the magic of emulation, all the wonderful things you can do with an emulation handheld that is impossible on original hardware. I think by the end of this video, you guys are going to come to realize that we're really two sides of the same coin, and it's not really one versus the other. It's just, we're just both trying to accomplish the same goal, which is to play our favorite games in the best way possible. So without further ado, let's just get right into the video. Okay, so let's talk about the rising costs of retro gaming, what it costs to play on original hardware. And what better way to illustrate this than to show you a real world example. Take a look at this black Game Boy Advance that I just picked up from a local game shop near me. And as you can see, this thing is in pretty decent condition for something that's like over 20 years old. And I chose to keep the price tag just to show you exactly how much I paid for this thing and how much you can expect to pay for something like this today, right? In January of 2025. Now, I put the little price tag sticker on the back of my my little battery compartment just to show you how much I paid for this device. Here it is, $80. Okay, and that's what you can basically expect to pay for a unit like this. Is an American model. It's in fairly good condition, still working. Now, you can find stuff cheaper online, probably on eBay, but a lot of times you're gonna get the Japanese version. It's also going to be in worse condition. Sometimes it doesn't work or it's for parts. If you want something working, American, in good condition, expect to pay at least around $80. Now, I think this was a really good price for this unit. And now that is just the unit itself. It doesn't include any games. So I did actually choose to purchase a game with my device when I picked this up. And this was just a shovelware kind of game, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Sorry, Harry Potter fans of this game, but this game is it's okay. It's not the best game. It's definitely not a Metroid. It's not a Pokemon. It's not a Mario game. It's not anything like that. It's not one of the hits that you really want to play on the Game Boy Advance. So this thing was like $5, right? And that's what you can come to expect for a very not popular game, like a game like this, or any sort of shovelware for the Game Boy Advance is what you'll find is around $5. Now, if we move into some of the other games, right here we have Super Mario Advance 4. This was the game that was actually in the device, and I have it here as well. This I actually paid $29.99 for this game. I feel like that's really not a bad price for a game in this condition. And the Mario games, they're not crazy expensive. Here's another example. Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance. As you can see, this copy is a lot more beat up. It even says the kid's name on it. Shout out Teddy. If you're watching this video, I have your game. Sorry, bro. And I purchased this from a store called All Things Video Games. Huge shout out to this store. You guys are ever in South Jersey, go check them out. And I paid $24.99 for this copy right here. Obviously it works. It's just a little bit more beat up. And I feel like that, look right here, That's not too bad. Altogether, we're looking at $80 for this, $60 in games. So you're looking at $140 altogether for the device with three games, one mid game and two decent games. But no Pokemon, no Zelda, no hits like crazy hits. And I want to talk about this. Like you've probably seen this on the background of some of my videos. This is a reproduction unit of Pokemon Ruby, right? And the reason I have this is because the real one is extremely expensive. And I just picked this up on AliExpress. It's really a prop. Like I've tried it and I played it in my thing and you can tell it's fake. So I don't actually play this this game. It's not a real game, but it illustrates something that I want to point out, right? These games are expensive. The games you actually want to play are very, very expensive. Now I'm going to overlay a shot of this store I was at, right? And I'm going to show you a real example of the current price of Game Boy Advance games. Now, of course, like I said, this applies to all retro games as a whole, but we're using Game Boy Advance as an example.
Now look at this, my favorite game series, Pokemon. Pokemon Emerald, $249. Pokemon Sapphire, $110. Pokemon Fire Red, $140. And look at all these other ones. Zelda Minish Cap, $89.99. Metroid Fusion, $59.99. Zero Mission, $69.99. Look at this. It's outrageous. The games you want to play are insanely expensive. Final Fantasy VI, $100. Fire Emblem, that wasn't even labeled. I asked the lady, it was $70. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money, guys. And it's not just this, it's everything. It's just retro gaming as a whole. This is not even just the store, it's what you're gonna pay everywhere. This is the price of retro gaming today.
I don't know about you guys, but when I start seeing prices like that, I immediately think maybe original hardware isn't all it's cracked up to be. You know, I start thinking about, you know, how else can I do this more affordably? Look, think about it. If I just got this, right, $80 for the unit, and then I picked up a game I actually really wanted to play, let's say Pokemon Ruby, $110 plus $80, $190 just these two games. I have one game in one console, $190, that's insanity. And granted, I understand there's a limited supply and a higher demand for some of these games, and that's why that's the prices they are at. But, you know, at some point I start to question, like, is there a more affordable, more accessible way to do these things? And then these handhelds like this, these start looking really enticing, right? Brand new modern hardware, right? This model is called the RG34XX, right? It's modeled perfectly after the Game Boy Advance, brand new hardware, backlit IPS display, lithium polymer batteries. You can store all your games in one card with room to spare. You can have the entire library of games and you'll be able to play the games you actually want to play. So these devices start really looking really appealing compared to original hardware. And as much as I would love to own these games, like the real ones, for the people that are just getting into this, right? The people who don't have all the games and they grew up collecting this stuff, it just doesn't make sense right now. It just doesn't make sense. It's very hard to convince somebody to, you know, oh, just go pick up a Game Boy Advance and just pick up some games, you know, because those games, they're expensive right now. They're very expensive, and they're getting more and more expensive every day. You know, as these games age and there's less and less of them on the market, you know, they're going bad. Some of the batteries are going bad. You know, there's going to be less and less of them, and it is what it is. The cost is going to go up. So we really can't be mad at people for looking at other ways to play that may not be the official quote unquote way to play. At a certain point, these devices are really a means to an end. Like, we're just trying to accomplish a goal, but we're trying to do it sensibly. We're not trying to give up. You know, I don't have an extra organ to pay for a Pokemon Emerald. I just want to play Emerald, guys. Like, so that's kind of where I'm at, right? Like, we have these devices and they make a lot more sense than original hardware right now. But going back to original hardware, that's not to say you can't have fun with original hardware for the low. You see these two examples right here. This is a great game right here. Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. This is a phenomenal game for $25. You can't beat it. This game right here, same thing. Another Mario game. That's what I love about Mario. It's still affordable today, right? $30. That's not bad. I can live with that. But $110, $70, you know, you're pushing it. These games are a little bit above the original retail, which was like $45. I can accept, right? But we start getting into the $70, $80, $90 territory for some of these games. I can't justify that. I really can't. And I'm just going to tell you to emulate those games because it's just too expensive. And now let's move on from the cost. I've rambled enough about cost. I know that's nothing new. So next we're going to talk about old hardware versus new hardware, original hardware versus these, clone consoles, if you will. I hate that word, to be honest. I rather call them remakes. But yeah, as you can see, obviously the Game Boy Advance, this unit is over 20 years old. The display by itself is showing its age. It's small. It doesn't even have a backlight. It's not OCA laminated. You can see this massive gap. It doesn't have the best viewing angles, 2.9 inches. It's a lot of things. And then you compare it with this 34XX. This has a 3 times native resolution, so it has 3 times the pixels. It is a ½ inch bigger. It's also a better display technology. Not only is it IPS, so it has way better color reproduction. It has 8 levels of brightness. Let me demonstrate that really quickly. So here we're at the lowest brightness. And as you can see, you have 8 levels of brightness with this unit. And even just putting them side by side, it's an insane difference what time can do to these displays. And on top of that, it is OCA laminated. So there is no gap in the screen. As you can see here, you can see this massive gap. The screen looks like it's very far away from the unit. It's like almost a centimeter versus this. It's like right there. They did recess the screen a little bit to make space for the screen protector if you want to put a screen protector. But still, this is a massive difference between the two units alone. And you know how much this costs? After you factor in, it's about the same as the price of this console, $80, 80 something dollars around there for this unit. Now this RG34XX also features some new things, some modern additions like an X and Y button that are kind of built into the device, which is really cool. They're a little bit smaller than the A and B. D-pad is almost exactly the same. These start and select buttons, they're not gummy how they are on the original unit. So they're not like a silicone feel. They feel exactly like the buttons. And then you have additional L2 and R2 buttons. And then obviously you have a bunch of modern stuff like HDMI out. So you can easily connect this to a TV. No need for a GameCube, no need for an adapter, no need for anything like that. You have USB-C charging. You have lithium polymer batteries, rechargeable batteries in these. 3,500 milliamp hours, good for like 10 hours on this battery. And then you have SD cards. You can put in any size SD card you want. And here I just have a 64 gig and you have all your games in one place. Take a look at this. Every single game I want to play, including the hits, whatever titles I want, I can have them in here. And this is just my personal GBA collection. But you can see I have all the hits in here. Pokemon Emerald, Legend of Zelda, the entire hits category of Game Boy Advance I have here on this one unit. Now think about just the convenience of that. I can have every single game I want to play and I never have to swap out cartridges. I never have to maintain these cartridges. I never have to change the batteries or anything. I just have to worry about this one unit and it's all just one thing, right? Versus this, I have the unit, I have the cartridges separate. I may have boxes as well to store these. It's a lot cleaner and easier to maintain versus something like this, right? And now I want to show you guys what 20-year difference in speakers is, okay? Now this is max volume on this thing. It's really not bad for 20 years, right? You can clearly see there's a very big difference between these two speakers. This gets at least 5 times louder than original hardware, right? Modern speakers. Not only this, we also have a volume dial, so we don't have to use a wheel. It's just a little turn, and you can cycle between those. These emulators are starting to look really compelling when you have a better screen and sound experience, period, outside of the controls, right? And then let's talk about the shell, right? This unit is very, very scratched up. As you can see here. Here, let me turn this off. Get this in better lighting. This thing is scuffed up. And yeah, it has character and stuff, but you know, are you gonna really take off the screen and replace it? These things are banged up. Look at this sticker back here. It has yellowing on the sticker. It's showing its age versus this. This is brand new hardware. This was literally just made, just printed, and it feels great. It feels very, very close to the real thing in a new package. So as much as I begged Nintendo to re-release the Game Boy Advance, to this day, they still have not. They still haven't even released a legacy console. They couldn't even do us that. After this, and they made the SP, they completely abandoned the Game Boy and they just moved on with it. It genuinely makes me sad that the people that want a pocket-sized handheld like this from a company like Nintendo are completely ignored, and we have to resort to methods like this to get what we want, right? It's sad because they should be catering to us as well, right? The people who want a pocket-sized handheld with one screen just like this are just ignored. We don't get that from them anymore. Do you guys remember batteries? Having AA batteries in here? I mean, I put some energizers in here and they last a pretty long time, but even these, you have to maintain these. Like, they eventually get corroded. You have to clean them out. You know, I mean, it's nice that you can just swap out the batteries real quick and keep playing, but I don't think anybody's going to argue with me that rechargeable batteries are much better than using batteries, you know? Now, this section is not to crap on original hardware, you know, that this is the authentic experience. But we have to remember the authentic experience is over 20 years old at this point, and we have to move forward and bring these games into current times. And right now, this not backlit display really isn't doing it for me. You won't believe, like, I made this post, it was kind of a joke post, but the only way I've found to actually be able to enjoy this device is actually using a headlamp. Believe it or not, I have this headlamp. I posted a funny picture of myself using this thing. I strap this thing to my head and I can illuminate the screen as I'm playing it, and that's really the only way I've been able to really enjoy this device without modding it, because obviously if I mod it, it's not original hardware anymore. It's a modded device now. So I wanted to find a way I could play it and still enjoy it, but I don't think anybody's gonna say that this is smart. We should just be using better ways to play these games. But now let's talk about what it actually feels like to play on original hardware, like not emulation, the real thing, the authentic experience. And for me, it all starts with just putting this game in. This just feels amazing. It really does. Like, just selecting the game you want to play, you know, dusting it off, getting that, cleaning it off. You pop that thing in, makes a nice satisfying sound, and then you boot it up and you always see that beautiful Game Boy Advance logo, man. That really never gets old, man. It never gets old. It just like you remember it. And the crazy thing is, it boots up so fast. I'd expect it to take a little bit longer for some reason, but no, it just boots up right away. And then the thing too with original hardware, there is zero input lag. There is no latency whatsoever. The second you click it, the second something happens on screen. You know, with emulation, sometimes you get a little bit of inaccuracy, and emulation has gotten really, really, really far, but it's still not zero latency like it is on original hardware. And that's kind of the real authentic experience. And the way I describe zero latency is literally the second you press anything on screen, something happens. Like, the sound is on point. There's no delay whatsoever. And we really can't knock that, because when you're playing, say, a game like this, like Super Mario World, you really do feel like Mario. Like, you feel so close, so much more connected when there's zero latency and it's like a perfectly accurate experience. So, you know, the fact that it's not emulated is definitely a perk. And also, let's talk about ownership. It's cool to have these games. You know, it's nice to own the real thing, right? The authentic copy of these games. And, you know, these games, I can send them to somebody, I can gift them to somebody, you know, I can display them on my shelf. There's a lot of cool things I can use them in the background of my videos, you know. There's a lot of cool things you can do with real physical media. Whether that's a pro to you is going to depend on you. You know, if you have a large library of games and you don't want to display them, they're kind of just taking up space, right? On one hand, it's cool, but on the other hand, it's not cool, you know? And now let's talk about the beauty of emulation, the things you can do with an emulation handheld that is impossible on original hardware. Let's talk about saving whenever you want, right? Let's say, for example, in this game, we're playing Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Advance 4, whatever. The fact that I can save whenever I want is amazing. Check this out. So all I can do, either I can do a hotkey or I can go right here, save state. Just like that, I can save at any point. You can also do it really easily by doing a button combination. And I have things like quick shutdown. So I could be in the middle of a level whenever I want, right? Say for here. Say for example, right here, I can pause it, right? I just press this button one time. It'll save for me and safely shut down. You'll see the light turn off. Boom, I can put this away, right? The next time I want to play, I don't even have to go through the Game Boy Advance boot screen or anything. I can boot up my device with a cool custom boot logo, like for Spider-Man, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you feel me? And then after give or take 10 seconds, I can come right back to the game and I'm right where I left off, just like that. And of course, this is impossible on original hardware. Think about that. How many of us are so busy today, right? A lot of us are parents. A lot of us are, we work. We are in situations where we can't just save when the game wants us to save. We need to save whenever we can because that's just how the modern day is. A lot of people don't have time. Like I might be at work and I have maybe 10 minutes to kill and I need to I want to play a little bit, right? And it's amazing the convenience of being able to save whenever I want, whenever I feel like it. I need that, right? And let's talk about games that are just difficult, right? A lot of games were intentionally made very, very difficult in the past. Being able to save whenever you want makes those games a lot easier and a lot better to play, a lot more enjoyable to play when the difficulty isn't unfairly difficult, right? And that's just the first thing, right? Just being able to save whenever you want. And what about having a built-in cheat engine? Does that sound interesting to you? Check this out. So I can go right here. I can go to cheats and have this cheat right here. Master Balls at Pokemart. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Apply changes. I'm going to back out of this menu. Resume the game. Now when I go into the Pokemart, check this out. Welcome. How may I serve you? And as you can see, I have potions for 0 Pokédollars and I'm getting Master Balls. And I can buy as many as I want. Free Master Balls. And then when I'm happy, go ahead and leave. Go to my bag, check if everything is good. I got 22 Master Balls. And then I can go ahead and turn that cheat off. Apply changes. I can resume the game. And everything's back to normal. And I have a bunch of Master Balls I can use for whatever I want. Oh yeah. Built-in Game Shark. That is freaking amazing. Tell me you can't do that. Tell me you can do that with original hardware. You can't. It's impossible. And not just that, like saving whenever you want. You can also play whatever you want, right? Not only do you have access to the entire Game Boy lineage, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, but we also have access to, say, ROM hacks, right? Have you ever wanted to play some fan-made games by some really passionate people that make amazing stuff? Pokemon Radical Red, Pokemon Let's Go Lugia, Pokemon Emerald Rogue, Pokemon Crown, a lot of cool stuff. Metroid Sub-Zero, a lot of fantastic titles that you would not be able to play at all on original hardware. Pokemon Unbound. This is probably one of the best Pokemon games ever created. And it's not even made by Game Freak. This is a fan-made game. You guys gotta check this out. But it just illustrates my point. You can play whatever you want. But going back to ROM hacks, there are a lot of amazing things people have done. There's Japanese game translations, games that have been ported into full color. There are a lot of Game Boy games that have been made into DX games. There's Pokemon Red and Blue in full color. There's amazing games that you would never be able to play if you didn't emulate them. The thing too, it doesn't just stop at, the handheld systems. You can also play console systems. For example, Super Nintendo. The Game Boy Advance was created to be a pocket Super Nintendo. Now imagine having a real Super Nintendo in your pocket, the real game, not a port, not a Game Boy Advance version, the real SNES in your pocket. That's what these handhelds allow you to do, which is absolutely nuts. You know, why play the Game Boy Advance version when you can play the real version right here on this handheld? We also cannot fail to mention fast forward, or we can speed games up. So for example, in this game where we may not want to sit through all this intro dialogue, we can easily fast forward through a lot of the boring parts of certain games or unskippable cutscenes. We can easily do that with the press of a button. Also with these retro handhelds, you have something called retro achievements. As you can see, I'm logged in and here I'm playing Pokemon Emerald, and you can see all these achievements you can get along the way as you're playing a game. So imagine playing Emerald for the first time, getting an achievement. Watch this. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Retro achievements. My point here is that both sides have their pros and cons. The authentic experience of, you know, using the real thing and using real games and, you know, collecting real games and having those games. There's a lot of merit to using original hardware, right? You know, plugging in some AA batteries in here, putting in some fresh energizers in here, you know, loading up the game, seeing the Game Boy Advance boot logo every time you boot up the game. There's an authenticity to this. The fact that there's zero lag, that this is not emulated, this is the real thing. There's a lot of value to this. And I understand why people opt to play this way. But there's a very strong argument for emulation handhelds. The fact that you get brand new hardware, you get all the amazing perks of emulation. The fact that this is so much cheaper to get, it's so much more accessible to play the games you want to play. For example, like Pokemon Emerald. You try to play the real version of this, and I hope you have some extra organs that you're willing to sell, because those games are really expensive. They're really expensive in today's market. And that's the biggest thing here. I think that the not just the cost, but also the accessibility. The fact that this hardware is getting old, it's starting to show its age. Capacitors are dying. You know, game saves are being lost because the batteries go bad. A lot of things are going wrong. Eventually, these consoles will die. We need a new form, a new version that will replace the consoles of old. And I don't see another official solution being put out. So these retro handhelds, these emulation handhelds are the best way. And I think really the way forward for this hobby. For retro gaming, I think emulation is the way. But I think I've illustrated my point long enough. What I plan to do is I'm going to take this Game Boy Advance and I'm going to mod it. I'm going to put an IPS screen in here. I'm going to put a lithium battery. I might even change the shell and replace the screen so it looks a lot better. And then I'm going to do a second comparison, emulation handheld versus a modded handheld, and then see how those hold up, right? Maybe even get one of those flashcards and then do a side-by-side with an emulation handheld. But even still, right, even if I didn't do that, right, and you just look at the cost of this versus getting that done, right, you buy this console, then you buy the mod kit, then you have to mod it yourself, and you need the flash card, which the good ones are around another $100. You're already you're up there in the hundreds already to get the best experience possible. Versus this, you know, it's like, how can we even compare to this? Everything you can do with it, saving anytime you want, the quick shutdown, the fact that you can play other libraries besides what this was intended to play. You can use this for other stuff besides gaming too. You can use it for media consumption. You can watch YouTube on it. There's so much you can do with this thing. And once you come to this side, the side that, you know, a lot of people consider to be the dark side of retro gaming, there's no going back to original hardware. It's very hard to look at this again, you know, seeing these screens side by side, the hardware side by side. It's very difficult to go back to original hardware. And with that, that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Play Retro. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What side do you stand on and why? Or maybe you stand in the middle, right? And you use both forms, right? Tell me your reasons why. Tell me why you emulate. Tell me why you play on original hardware. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and let's just really get a discussion going about the current state of retro gaming and why it is people are playing the way they're playing today. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Javi. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.